All right, so this is being recorded, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Just a couple quick introductions. My name is Jeff Marquis, and I'm the Director of TSAMM Services, and so I'm going to be running this training webinar today. And on the call as well from Data Paradigm is Eduardo Rodriguez. He is our Director of TSAMM Relations. He is going to be the main point of contact as it relates to support. And so we are excited to be able to share with you Angel Tree. And so I'm going to just very briefly here begin to share my screen. And so right off the bat, I just want to go over a quick change that some of you may have experienced this year. At the request of Territorial Headquarters, we have been asked to have the registration for Angel Tree happen through your divisional headquarters. And so if you have tried to go on and activate your campaign for this year, you would have received a message that informed you that you needed to reach out to your divisional social service director. So what we are asking the divisional social service directors to do is to communicate directly with us, those individuals from their divisions who will be participating in TSAMM's Angel Tree this year. And so if you have any questions about that, please reach out to your divisional social service director, and they will have the necessary information for you to be able to activate your campaign. We are excited. We understand that it's July. It is 108 degrees here in Dallas, and that means that people are prepping for Christmas. And so we are excited to share with you some of the changes, as well as a recap of, from an administrator's point of view, the manner in which you will function in your Angel Tree this year. And so right off the bat, I do want to provide one clarification, and that is that this webinar is specifically geared towards administrators. And so we are going to walk very carefully through the campaign settings. We are going to walk through some of the administrative functions that you will need to have as an Angel Tree administrator. What we will not be going through on this call is the processing of an application, as well as additional functions. And so that is going to happen on this Thursday for the standard user webinar for Angel Tree. And so if you haven't registered for that webinar, I believe Territorial Headquarters has communicated that out. Otherwise, I'm sure your divisional social service directors have access to that webinar, so you may want to hop on. Both of these webinars will be available via recording for you to go back and reference, and maybe if you know someone that missed this webinar would benefit from being a part, by all means, we would appreciate you go ahead and referring to and checking back with us if you have any questions. Just one last thing, and that is, if you haven't found, there is a question section that Eduardo is going to be manning. Eduardo is also going to unmute periodically because Eduardo is the significant expert as it relates to Angel Tree, and he knows the ins and outs of Angel Tree in its entirety, and so we are excited. So if he chimes in, he's going to keep me in line, and so I'm grateful for him. And so right off the bat, we're going to jump straight in and jump straight into the campaign settings. And so from our campaign, we're going to walk through line by line how you would be configuring your campaign. And so right off the bat, when you first come in to bring up your campaign, you'll be prompted with questions. If you used Angel Tree in years past, you would be prompted if you want to import previous year settings. It is up to you ultimately if this is an important thing that you want to do, or if you want to build yours from scratch. Maybe you want to revamp it, and bringing over past data would not be as beneficial. But right off the bat, you're going to set some overall campaign settings, the first of which is your campaign name. This is going to be utilized on your public Angel Tree site, so you largely want to be able to name this in one that is going to be potentially public facing. Next, you set your max angel range. This is going to differ based on from location to location. You set the age range and the as of date that's based on your settings. Moving down a little further, you see this next field here for allow applicants with no angels. This was a new addition to 2022, and this allows Angel Tree interface to be used purely for food basket registration. In years past, the system would look to see if the applicant had any angels, and if they didn't, it would prevent them from registering. So you set in the system, do you want to allow that? So if you are going to utilize a food basket program only, so therefore a potential program that would allow you to access without having angels, you'll go ahead and set that to yes. For now, we're going to set that to no. Additionally, with senior angels, some of you may utilize special care angels or senior angels. And you set that, if you click yes, it'll prompt you with 2 questions. The first of which, you can set your minimum senior angel age, if that's going to be 65, or whatever that age range is going to be, or you can set it to have no minimum set, at which point it is up to you to determine maybe that's going to be a fluid number, and it's only through application or other special circumstances that someone is eligible to be a senior angel. That's why you would utilize that option. Next is your final gift return date. That is basically a public-facing date that helps to construct and build out your angel tree example. Next down, you're going to set your angel tag templates. Now, we have a standard template if you purchase your angel tags from trade. There are a couple options here. You can see a sample here of what it's going to look like in terms of how it's printed, the layout. Now, I do want to provide an option for you. If you do have a custom situation, let's say you have a special sponsor partner, that you have a special angel template you want, Data Paradigm can build that out for you. We just need to let them know, and we'll get you a quote based on the different parameters behind that. And so you'll go ahead and communicate that with us. Just go ahead and reach out to Eduardo Rodriguez, and he'll be able to get a quote to you for what it would take for us to build that custom template. Lastly, we've got 2 options, one of which here at the bottom you would have seen before, and that is to print angel first name on tags. Depending on your circumstances and your community and your command, you may elect to include the first name. We obviously never include last names for angels, but you can choose whether or not you want the first name to be recorded. What that means is to be printed. What that means is if you select yes, as we have it here, it will put Jeff, boy, age 10. If you select no, it's pretty obvious. It'll just say boy, age 10. There won't be any differentiating information on the tag itself beyond the angel code. Lastly, here is something that we're only going to give you a little teaser about today, because we're going to cover it largely on Thursday, and that is we have a new adopt a family interface. And so this is going to allow for those commands that utilize the adopt a family function to be able to gather wishes and needs for their the additional family members beyond the angels, if that's identified, but you will need to enable that from your campaign settings. If you can always turn that off periodically, and you can always choose to disengage it, but that's going to turn on a few other buttons that we'll cover on Thursday. But here, this is where you will enable your adoptive family settings. Now, once I'm done here and I've got my settings configured, I will save my changes and be able to go ahead and move forward. Now, we're going to begin to work our way through these tabs here in our campaign settings. The next tab we're going to come to is sites. Now, this is a site represents any physical location where you're going to be conducting an angel tree activity. Now, your 4 activities that you can choose from are over here: intake, adoption, drop off, and distribution. Now, one thing that we have found in years past is people use this often for the bare minimum. One thing we want to ensure that you understand, when it comes to adoption and drop-off options, those sites that you configure are going to be available through your public adoption site if you use the Data Paradigm sponsored web page. And so if you utilize Walmart's for your angel tree adoptions, but maybe you don't choose to list them, maybe they only get forgotten angels, but you can go ahead and list them here. That allows the public to know that they are going to be able to go there to adopt, as well as the range and the dates, and we'll get into that a little bit later. To add a new site, you'll click this green plus sign, and you'll go ahead and you'll add in your location. You'll add in your site. Let's say you want to go to Walmart. You'll go ahead and type in an address, and we'll go ahead and put this in Louisville. Again, I'm in Louisville, Texas, so I'm going to go ahead and type that in. And so when you're done, you need to verify the above address. And so it's going to verify, and it's going to pull this out. Now, this is not a Walmart location. At this point, you have the ability to move this pin exactly where you want them to go. This is going to be specific for maybe you want to have them reference the back side of the building where a parking lot is and where a loading dock is for the purpose of drop off. And once you've done that, you will set that and you'll save your location info. At this point, you are done, and it will be added to your list here as a name. And then you go over and you assign which actions are going to be happening at that site. Are you going to do intake? So this is a physical intake site, or an online function. Adoption, this is where they can go to adopt angels, obviously where they can go to drop off angels, and where distribution sites, where gifts are going to be distributed fund. Every site in the Angel Tree interface needs to be configured here. So this is how you can conduct a site. The next thing we're going to walk through is each one of these 4 options. The first one is intake. Now at intake, I'm going to set my parameters. And so let's go in and let's edit the Bay City core. And so I'm going to go through a couple options. The first of which I'm going to set what is my online applications open or closed. This is a manual process. Let's say you have, from a business rule sense, stated that we want to open our Angel Tree applications on August 1st or on September 1st or whatever date that is. You would simply go in and manually set those from closed to open. And then this is for an appointment request here. And then you also set the maximum number of appointment requests you want to allot. Maybe you're going to only allot 50 or 200, depending on your accommodations. Next is an online application. This is the same thing, open and closed. This is going to set the max number of requests that they're going to allow without an invitation code. An invitation code allows you the ability to do 2 things. One of which, it allows you to set up your Angel Tree to where they are only able to access it if they have maybe pre-registered, if they've contacted your office, and they need to be able to access via an invitation code. Also, the invitation code allows them to bypass your predetermined zip codes. So if you have set up your zip codes to go through, and perhaps you have the family member of a core who doesn't live in your service area, but they are going to be in town for Christmas, and maybe your core member has asked for a special accommodation, you can give them an invitation code and thus allowing them to bypass the zip code requirement. Your serviceable zip codes here is how someone from the public is able to access the application through their online application. If the zip code is not present here, when they go to the public Angel Tree, saangeltree.org, and they type in their zip code, they will not be able to access and move forward. So please make sure you put all of your zip codes in, again, for this online intake location. There's one other key component that you want to do here when you're dealing with your intake, and that is to assign approved distribution sites. Well, as we'll get into more of this on Thursday when it comes to the processing and application, but you cannot give final approval to an angel until it has a distribution site. This is one of the biggest challenges that we find that people have each year, that when they go in, they seem to not be able to find the necessary distribution appointments. And that is because they haven't tied a distribution site to an intake site. So here at this point, you'll come in and click on here if you want to add and be able to go through and add in the necessary distribution sites. So this is your intake site. Next, and this is only where adoption, the next goes to adoption. So this is where you are going to be able to adopt angels from. Again, they're going to grab from these sites, and this will be used on your website, which I'll show you here in a little bit. But you're going to set the schedule that they have and when they're able to come in. The scheduler looks like this. This is going to be similar to your distribution, at which point we're going to set, this is going to be open beginning in on November 1st, and it's going to jump into, it's going to be available until December 1st. And then you're going to go through and week by week be able to set your calendar. So every Monday, it's going to be open from 9 to 12 and 1 to 5. And you can go through and add these additional information as well as include any special information when it comes to adoption as needed. So this is your adoption site. This will be utilized on the public-facing web page, should you utilize that and not one within your internal website. Your drop-off is a similar function to where you're just saying when you can drop off angels and where. What is your schedule? When does that begin? How many hours a week? Is that open? You're going to set that as a drop-off schedule. Both adoption and drop-off interfaces very much overlap. Your next option here is going to be the distribution configuration. This is the next area where we tend to see people that struggle and maybe need to adjust their configurations. And so when you go into configure this is when I started already. So when you go into configure your distribution sites, you're going to set your schedule and you're going to build it out week by week. And you're going to set how many appointments you want and how many segments. So if you want to do 10 appointments every 15 minutes, this is how you would configure it. If you want to do 10 appointments every 30 minutes, this is how you would do it. You can really set that out based on your parameters. As I work my way down, the current count is basically how many appointment slots have I scheduled for. And so this is helpful to know that if you have an anticipation of 2,000 angels, but you've only given enough distribution slots for 1,500, you're going to run into some challenges, and so you would need to tweak and adjust that way. You'll create a distribution code. This will be utilized on the family code, your warehouse labels, to help you differentiate between the varying sections. This next section, I just want to pause on here to talk about briefly, and this is your family code start and end. One thing that happens multiple times throughout the year is people call and they want to increase their family code. Your family code here needs to intentionally be wider than your anticipated need. So if you anticipate having 1,000 angels or 1,000 families, you want to give yourself 1,500 or even 2,000. As strange as that sounds, it doesn't do anything other than give you a number sequence to base it based off, right? Like you can have 10,000 slots knowing that you're only going to have 1,000 families if that's what's needed. But by giving yourself that buffer room on the top, you can expand your capacity to accept angels without any additional configuration on our end. We do have the ability from our seat to be able to adjust these numbers for you, but that there is a lead time just for us to be able to get in and make those database changes to be able to handle that. But this is something that is going to be very important for you. Give yourself that extra space. Give yourself an extra 500 or 1,000. It really does not impact your operation other than your sequential numbers. Then down here is going to be able to give information that you want to include when they receive their appointment. When someone is finally admin approved with a distribution appointment, the applicant will receive a message, will receive an email that gives them the specifics of their appointment time, both the address, the location, the time, as well as any additional information that you want to communicate to them. You can put information here like, please proceed to the back of the warehouse. Please show up no sooner than 15 minutes before your appointment time. The use cases here are as wide as you need for your given situation. But this is here where you're going to give those additional information that needs to be able to be shared as a part of your distribution operation. So once that is all configured, you will have your distribution here. You can see our settings. We have our family code of 6001 to 8000. You'll see here, it will prompt you. You cannot overlap these numbers. And so if I wanted to add another distribution site, I would need to start at number 8001 and continue my way up. Again, it really doesn't matter how many numbers you utilize. It's still going to be followed and guided based on your parameters previously described within your campaign settings. So this is distribution. The next line item here is our application. So I want to go over here your 3 application options. The first one is family applicant intake. You're going to be able to differentiate if any applicant ID that starts with FA, this is your family applicant intake. This is an application for families or seniors that's entered manually by your intake staff. I understand that in years past, we have instituted a contactless registration for AngelTree, and there are units that use both. There are units that use only one or the other. And so this is if you were going to do an interview process, you would configure that through the family applicant intake. The next one here is your special care applicant intake. This is specifically designed for group registrations. Think of your nursing homes, if you have or your rehab centers that you would visit and you want to create them as special angels, you can create them within the system as this special care applicant to do group registrations based on a residence, based on an organization, or based on a partnership that you have in your community. And then lastly, here is your AngelTree Public. This is where they would go to saangeltree.org to navigate. And I'll show you the AngelTree Public site, but they'll all be configured in the same way. I'll choose my form type, and it's going to work me through various steps. The first thing you're going to see is a default, the applicant information. Now, I want to pause here briefly to explain the 3 types of individuals that are in the AngelTree system. The first of which is the applicant. As far as AngelTree is considered, this person in large sense would be considered the head of household. They are the ones who are applying. Now, I understand in the SIMS database, this person might not be the applicant or the head of household in that system, but as it relates to AngelTree, they are the one representing that family and registering. Now, this is going to have a greater requirement of fields. Now, you'll notice here, if you use TSAMM AngelTree in the past, that you'll see quite a few more, what we would say, disabled boxes. And that is because for data quality standards, we've been asked by the territory to require certain fields based on the user, based on the household member, the angel, or the applicant. And so you'll see here that no longer you have the option to not require the gender field, to not require race fields, not require ethnicity. These are required fields that are being asked, that need to be gathered as a part of your AngelTree process. If you have any questions around the default settings that are in your system, please direct those questions to your divisional social service director, and they will provide additional context. We do not have the ability at Data Paradigm to make any custom changes to the data standards beyond what is requested from your territorial headquarters. And so if you reach out to us, we'll simply refer you back to your divisional social service directors. But if you have a special case scenario in your community in which you really would advise against capturing certain data points, you bring those concerns to your divisional social service director, and they will provide the Salvation Army's guidance on this. But as you work your way through, I'm not going to walk through each one of these data points because they're all fairly straightforward until we get to the angel component. But each one of these is information I'm going to be asked. The first is the applicant information. The next is household members who are not qualified angels. Now, I understand that there has been some questions in the past from using terms like non-angel or things along those lines. We have internally began to look at a potential revamping, but at this point, because of the variations as it relates to angel age, we find that this is the best and most straightforward way to be able to understand this. Now, we've put in some additional checks, but this is where your household members would enter in their angels. And now a household member, if you're only allowing angels up to the age of 13, a 14-year-old is going to be deemed a household member who's not a qualified angel. And so you're going to walk through and require this information. Next is budget. Now, right at the very top, depending on your location will depend whether or not certain information is required at all. So if you want to bypass this stage in its entirety, simply unclick the asked here at the top screen. So if I go ahead and leave that unchecked, when the applicant goes through the application process, it will completely bypass step 3. Now our next phase here is when we want to get to the angels, because this is where we're going to get into some more specific information. This is when we're going to be able to gather additional information that's going to be used to fulfill your angels' needs and wishes. Now, as you come down here, you're going to be able to clarify 2 options. When it comes to each one of these, need or need custom list, I need you to know that you can only utilize one of these data fields. You can utilize need, which is just going to be an open text box, at which point they can enter in whatever information they want, or a custom list that you provided for them. Now, I'm just going to show you one of these options because they're all the same. But when you manage your custom lists, this is where you can name the field list. Maybe you have a special partnership with an agency of some type that's going to provide bedding, and so every child's going to get some type of bedding, and so you want them to pick an actual bed, a blanket, or sheets. And then you also will go ahead and set the age range. Maybe when you come to the needs, if you're talking about diapers, you obviously want to set a max age range of maybe 5 or 6. That would ensure that you don't have a 10-year-old requesting a diaper or even be presented with that option. But these are how you would manage those data fields in your application. You would name it, and you're going to do this for each one of these components, for your need, your wish, any favorite, right? Maybe if you just want to be able to find out what your favorite color is it blue, pink, green? Because all this information is going to be given and presented based on the settings that you have presented here. And so once you've gone through and you set up all of your standards, you'll save and close, and you'll be brought back to the application itself. And then you would go through, and perhaps you may want to give more flexibility to your family applicant take. So for the public site, you'll set your custom needs list, but for the family applicant in which an individual, a staff member is doing the intake, you might leave that as an open data field because you give them more flexibility. They understand the standards that you're holding to in your operation. So this is application. Next is documents. Now, documents is fairly straightforward, in which you can put in required documents that are related to your application. Now, to add in a required document, it's very simple. I have an existing one. I can choose my new document type, and so I could put lease agreement, at which point I'll save that, and now it's become an option. And then I'm going to say that this is required for which one of these members, right? Is it required for the applicant, the angel, the household member, or all of the above? And so I can go through and I'm just going to simply check those boxes that this applies to ensure that you gather the documents that are required. Now understand that when it comes to these are required documents. These are documents that must be presented from the applicant if they want to, in order to register. So if it is an optional data point, if it's an optional requirement here, this is something that will not, right now it is not set as an optional field here in our document settings. Just a few more options here. I haven't looked at I think Eduardo's handling all the questions, and so I think he's doing that. Eduardo, if you want to go ahead and unmute here, I think this might be a good pausing point for a second to see if there's any questions that are warranted to highlight here.
Okay, sorry about that. I was muted. Yeah, we had a question from Becky Darrow. I apologize if I'm saying this name incorrect. She had a question about whether drop-off sites could be pertinent to aim to adopt a family, and that's something we'll be diving into a bit more in tomorrow's webinar. But the the drop-off locations aren't specific to any kind of angel type or like adoptive family specifically. They can be used for any type of family, whether it's adoptive family, just a normal family, or even a family without kids. So hopefully that answers your question there. Let me go through and try to find a few more questions that are kind of not too specific. We also had a question about whether some of these settings are specific to online or in person. So just to kind of provide a general response to that, the system does allow for both online applications, and maybe this is a new location that's joining TSAMM Angel Tree for this year. And so I thought I might just answer it in a general way. The system does allow for online applications as well as in-person intake, or that kind of traditional, someone's maybe sitting there in your lobby, or sitting across from a caseworker or an Angel Tree administrator. The system does allow for those two types of request. And I think everything else is kind of more specific, and maybe a question. I know I have some stuff here with Eric as well, but we'll give Eric some time to speak probably after we finish presenting. So I think that's it for now, Jeff.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I appreciate it. If nothing else, it gave them the sound of another voice to be able to be used here for a little bit. And so the next thing that you're going to be able to see here is your seasonal programs. So some of these are specific to the WellSky interaction. So we're going to go over this more on Thursday, but you know that your applicants have the opportunity to be matched with SIMS client ID for the purposes of exporting the data from Angel Tree into WellSky. We know that there were some challenges with that interface last year. We've been working with WellSky to resolve some of the performance issues. They have built out a brand new, what's called an API integration, just kind of the way in which two web pages talk to each other from a data perspective. And so we're excited about that. And we're going to go over a little bit more, even the ability to be able to type in and enter this one. I think Eric just popped in and said he wanted to speak on this one. Do you want to go ahead? Eduardo, if you can unmute Eric. He's kind of, Eduardo's acting as my producer, and so I'm going to go ahead and have him.
Let me go ahead and unmute him.
Yeah, so Eric, we're going to unmute you so you can go ahead and speak to the seasonal programs and the WellSky integration.
Thank you, I appreciate that. This is an important section for everybody. If you want to have services accounted for at the end of the year, and there's a specific format that we have to have implemented for this to be used. So as you can see right now, for this location, the Bay City Core has food voucher available. You got to make sure that if there's specific services that are connected to SIMS, you have those checked at those sites. And these are going to have to be marked off at the end of the year when you're doing distribution. If there's a service in SIMS that you don't see here, we need to talk through how that can be added into the system, because there's a specific format that needs to be followed that allows the value to come in during the data import. For an example here, if you look at number 4 and number 5, somebody typed in food voucher, but it doesn't have the format that's needed to come across as a service in SIMS. Number 5 actually has the correct format. And so we need to talk about how you get that set up in SIMS, set up in TSAMM if you're not seeing the service you need.
Yeah, perfect. And this is something that we saw last year. We had people that, instead of utilizing the predetermined seasonal programs that were connected to WellSky, maybe they didn't look, maybe it's phrased differently in their system. Maybe instead of food voucher or Christmas meal, they're calling it a Christmas dinner, right? And so they wanted to be able to differentiate. So instead of utilizing Christmas meal, they used a holiday dinner, and then in doing so, that data doesn't get exported. You do have the ability to add any additional seasonal programs, but note that if you do, they do not get translated over to WellSky. For instance, in this setting, they wanted someone to talk about a life skills training program that they have. This is a testing environment, so none of this is necessarily in real life, but you can see here use cases for this. Maybe you have special programs that don't at this point translate directly to a SIMS integration, but you want to be able to mark them. And we'll talk more on Thursday about how those are applied to each applicant. but we will go over the report that you would see to be able to see those. Your seasonal programs here is just within this Dropbox, within this pop-up, and so you'll just come down here to add a new program, type in your new program, and it'll become available moving forward.
But again, if you want a service that's specific, that needs to be imported into SIMS, there is a structure that we need to have when you're adding a service. So administrators, this is going to be really important for you to understand, because if it's not done right, those services will not come through.
Correct. All right, so we're going to jump over here to the integrated online Angel Tree website and Angel Tree adoption page. You may or may not utilize this from your perspective. We hope you do. We think there's a significant value in it. We actually were just speaking with a command here in Texas, and they are going to alter their Angel Trees to, rather than printing all the specific information, they're going to print just a QR code that's directing people back to this adoption page, because it's then they can have an unmanned tree, but that still captures the donor's information when they go online to fill out the information. And so here you're going to first set your public visibility to on or off. This is just, do I want to use this? Do I not want to use this? A quick overview of the page. The first here, you can view your public Angel Tree sites by clicking these links. It'll open in a new tab. And so here, this is the Bay City, Michigan Core Community Online Angel Tree. And so you're going to get some information, kind of some built information, kind of like what is Angel Tree. It's a default branded with your location to be able to find out about Angel Tree, what are the services that are provided, additional information about it, as well down here. Now you may, if you look here on this map, this is where we talk, remember when we talked about sites and wanting to include adoptions, because if you utilize this public page, but don't utilize your adoption site settings, from your campaign, you're kind of missing out, because if someone comes to their page, they are going to look here to see, where can I adopt? Where can I drop off? If they're going to look here right now, there's only one location that's been set up. And so it's going to be this Bay City Core. This is the only information that they can import and be able to see. As you scroll down, you can see kind of the history of Angel Tree, as well as a prompting to adopt an angel. So they can get to their Angel Tree adoption site internally or from here. When you come over to this site, you're going to be prompted with to choose your angel, right? Do I want a boy or girl, or doesn't really matter to me, as well as what's my age range. This is going to be automatically populating from available options. So this is a test. Test site. So right now there are only angels to be adopted between the ages of 2 and 4 and between the ages of 8 and 11. And so that's going to give you the option. It's going to move forward and allow you to adopt. And so this is your online information. But here, what I want to jump over here is some additional information that allows you to further customize your web interface. The first of which is you can utilize your public Angel Tree website without also allowing public adoption, right? And so you can turn on or off your online adoption. You put in your phone number, the area name, what is the short name, as well as the donation. This is if you utilize a way in which that they can financially give to the Salvation Army. You can include this donation URL. You can set up max for the number of angels that they will be able to adopt in a certain setting. One of the biggest challenges that operations experience is when people adopt angels and don't return them. And so because of that, they want to put some limitations on this so that people can come back. Typically, most locations use 4 or 5. What we find is that people go much north of that. When you get close to 9 and 10, they're going to set them up as a specific angel allocation rather than having it be just a random donor that's coming to your website. Down here, you can include your website and social media links, your specific website. If you have a Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, you can go ahead and include those changes here. And then further down, you can further customize some of the content slides that you're going to see, because you not only can choose a photo. So if I click this, it's going to upload multiple options that I can choose to include on my website. Maybe I really want to highlight a certain component, maybe just the Angel Tree itself or other components. I can select an angel, a picture that I want to use, go ahead and use that selected, and then I also have the ability to update the text that's going to appear. It allows you to further customize specific to your community and your command. And because you can choose different pictures, we give you different positions for the text to go through. If you keep an eye here on this screen here, you'll go ahead and see that change from 1, 2, 3, or 4 based on the image itself. You know, if I was using this image, I would go ahead and use this because it's probably the best location, in my opinion, to be able to do that. And that's going to be happening here through these different options, slide 1, 2, and 3. As well as some additional quote to be used on your header. I'll jump back and show you where that is found. Your main text that's found here, I'm going to not stress on all these because these are things that you get to impact and you get to bring forward. As well as a video, if you want to include that. This is something that allows you to use a generic Angel Tree program, or if you have a specific video that you want to record for your command that then tells about the Angel Tree operation of specifically Bay City, Michigan, or Des Plaines, Illinois. These are places that you can go ahead and dive into, as well as additional text here for the steps that they're going to go through that follows Angel Tree, step 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then at the very bottom, you're going to see the history of the community's involvement. You can highlight, maybe you had specific donors in the past. You're going to include this. So just as you note here, this information here at the top, these first 4 paragraphs is a static information. That does not change, but this information here at the bottom is local history, right? This is where you would highlight donors. Here's where you can put in corporate partners. And one thing that was added last year is actually the ability to include a banner image. So this is where we got a specific request from Little Rock, Arkansas, because they had a car dealership who was sponsoring the entirety of Angel Tree. And we know from a development standpoint, when we're trying to encourage these, we can go ahead and apply these images and these headers that allow that unit, that sponsor, to be advertised on the public page. Then there's another link down here at the bottom to the public Angel Tree site. So this is your campaign configurations. We really encourage you to go ahead and spend some time utilizing your officer and utilizing your development staff to really make as much out of this as we can, because over the Christmas season, thousands of people navigate to these sites to be able to support the Salvation Army and their kids. And so we want to communicate and even potentially point them to further ways in which they can engage with the Salvation Army even after the Christmas season. And then the last thing I want to spend a little bit of time here before we jump into a few other components is something that was new to last year called distribution management. Distribution management is a way for you to manage both the intake, the gift tracking, as well as your distribution management so that you can see things that are happening through. Now, what this is, it allows you to fine-tune your distribution process from the purposes of a gift being returned to certain quality control items being passed. And the way that you would configure this is you are going to go through and you are going to check. So the first thing, sorry, forgive me, I skipped past. You're going to select your distribution site. We have 3 distribution sites here. So we'll go ahead and stay with the Bay City core. And then from a sorting gift tracking standpoint, I would include as many or as few options when it comes to sorting statuses as need be. These titles are intentionally ambiguous because you get to set the standards behind exactly what this is going to be included, what needs to be gone through. So maybe you won't use gift returned, but you'll use received at warehouse. Maybe you use one element of quality control because perhaps your operation has set a minimum standard for the number of gifts that should be in a bag. Unfortunately, we all know the situation in which you've got 2 kids from one household. One kid has a completely full bag. Another kid has a t-shirt and a Barbie in it. And so you want to try to utilize a toy shop model to be able to bolster some of those bags and being able to move forward. And so you're going to go ahead and select these. You can also select needs attention because from a standards, maybe you've identified that the bag needs to be addressed, but you're not able to address it in that given moment. And so you're going to mark it as needs attention. then someone's going to be able to go into the sorting dashboard and be able to see, oh, these are the bags that need to be addressed. And I can go directly and find them in the warehouse, or even needs additional gifts. You can kind of set the different standards. But one thing that's standard is that the final status will always be ready for distribution, right? This is a way for us to be able to say, do you want to know what? I have done everything that I need to do and to be able to handle this. And so once I do this, I'll save my settings. And now if I come down here, I'm going to configure my checkpoints. And so not only I'm going to set my location. So let's say received at warehouse will be the warehouse dock. Quality control 1, you could use a location, or you can use a permission, a person, right? You could say warehouse floor, or you can call it signed off by captain, right? Something that's going to be able to give a better understanding that says this is indeed who signed it off. Maybe only if 1 or 2 people are allowed to sign off and say a bag is indeed ready to go. And then lastly here, we'll call this the toy shop, because that is where it needs additional gifts. So I'm going to change this back to warehouse floor, and I save it. So at this point, my sorting warehouse is ready to go. And as I come through, I'm able to go ahead and process these. And now in the distribution, your sorting is going to be, your gift tracking is something that happens over the course of your entire season. But then when it comes to distribution day, this is allowing you to be able to say, okay, we're ready to distribute, we're ready to move forward, and this is what the process is for when someone comes to pick up their gifts, right? We can mark them as family ready. This is a way to signal that that this entire family is ready to go. So sorting and gift tracking is going to be operated based on the angel independently, right? Each angel to angel. Your distribution day is family to family. Obviously, you're not distributing one angel at a time. And so it allows me to go through as a bridge and utilize this family ready status to where I can go through and mark every family that's ready to go. That way in the system, I'm fine. I'm able to rest that they have received everything that they need in order to proceed. And the same thing, I'm going to go through this. You can say that they've checked in the parking lot, that they're ready to pull gifts, or the gifts pulled, or maybe they're on hold because there's a backup, or it's in an addressing, or maybe on the fly they say, oh, we need attention. And so we can go through and do the same type of, you can configure this in the same way, into which the family complete will be the warehouse floor. They checked in the parking lot. Gifts pulled is in the lobby, and distributed is in the front parking lot. Now, within this, we can set some parameters. The first of which, if you utilize the checked in option, you can set a warning for someone checking them in, that you can say that either A, they must be within the same day of their scheduled appointment. Unfortunately, we know sometimes people might come a day early because maybe there's a fear, or maybe they misunderstood. Or you can say they must be within, let's say, 30 minutes of their appointment time. What this is going to do is the person that is scanning them in, they're going to use a barcode or utilizing their phone just to type in the 4-digit code on their application, on their family code. I'm going to go ahead and it's going to give them a big, hey, they're early. They came in early. They're not fitting within the predetermined standards. Now, you can always choose to let them go forward. Or you can go ahead and choose to allow them to go in. So this is an optional field. And then lastly, down here, we have the option to have a family representative sign to confirm they received gifts. This is for a confirmation's sake. Unfortunately, there are people that will reach out to you after the fact and say, well, I missed a bag, or I never picked up my bags, or someone else came in an effort to try to abuse the system. And so you could have a signature page that's going to be utilizing the same method that they would for when they sign during their application intake. And they can go ahead and sign right on a phone or tablet. It could be as simple as you're putting the bags in their trunk, you click distributed and you hold it up and they will sign confirming that they received the bags that are there. And so we'll go ahead and save these settings. And so it's all been configured as well as the additional option. There's some additional FAQs here for you able to find out and move forward. This items down here is where you can get into your distribution and sorting dashboards. And so this, sorry, so this is the application site itself. And so when I go on and I go to this page, here you can see that I've already logged in. It's got my information ready to go. And so it has my first name, last name, and an optional picture. This is because we think of when you go to Chick-fil-A, I'm in Dallas, or when you go to McDonald's nowadays, you can kind of see a ticker of kind of where you are in line. You can see how far away you are. We can, by utilizing the name and the picture, we can say who it is that is entered in to certain tasks. Because when I go back, I can go to my sorting dashboard, and you're only going to see one option here, but I can see that this angel has been marked as ready for distribution. It was done by Jeff Marquis. You can see my option here. When you go in, it gives you the option to enter in oversized gifts. It gives you the option to enter in additional notes to go through. It really is a really cool tool for you to be able to track and follow the process. If you utilize the sorting and distribution dashboard, you also have statistics. So I can go into statistics and say, okay, of all my gifts at all my distribution sites, where am I at? Well, I've got 50 not returned. And if you're utilizing multiple of these, you'll see, okay, I've got 15 gifts that need attention. I've got 25 gifts that need additional gifts. I've got many. It gives me the additional information that I need to be able to better strategize as I move forward. And you can go ahead and scan these just as they come in for $30 from Amazon. And we've got on the FAQs here, it gives you better additional information on where you can find a Bluetooth scanner that you can stand on the loading dock as bags are coming off and just simply use the code bleep and return to received at warehouse, bleep, received at warehouse. It gives you real-time information of when items have been returned for the purposes of sorting as well as distribution. Now, if you utilize the distribution dashboard, there'll be an ongoing ticker that tells you how long they've been sitting in a specific state. So maybe they've been, they were checked in, but they haven't been updated in the last 20 minutes. Well, we need to see what's going on. Now, what I will say is that I understand that this was new for last year, and this is a very robust additional feature that I would love to have a little bit more time, but in the context of all things we're trying to cover, I want to make sure I leave out time for questions. But what I want to say to you from an administrative point of view, one of the biggest challenges that we have is dealing with the nature of things being distributed. Now, if you utilize the distribution dashboard, even if you don't use any of the other options and you only use distributed, what I would say is pick the person who maybe can't stay on their feet as long, and you literally just put them at the door as people are walking out the door and simply very quickly clicking beep, distributed, distributed, distributed. And it allows you, it will update. If someone has been marked as distributed on distribution day, their family and all angels will also be updated to distributed. And so this does one of two things. It both saves you time from having to go back in the system and update that applicant to distributed, but it also, for those of you that have multiple campaign sites, and especially those of you that have that are a part of an area command, that have multiple core and looking at visibility, you can go into this dashboard and say, how is distribution going at my 5 distributions happening simultaneously? I can see, oh, this one is doing really well. They're really well ahead. Oh, this one seems to be a little bit behind. Let me go ahead and check and see how things are going. It gives you some, not oversight for the purposes of controlling anything, but from a support standpoint, it allows you to go ahead and track that in. So this is distribution dashboard, and this is all of your campaign settings. Now, I know we have about 35 minutes left. I want to show you a few other components that from an administrative point of view that you would need to be able to handle. And so as I go through, the first thing I want to show you is seasonal programs. This is a report. If you want to see how many people signed up of your applicants, signed up for the different things that they signed up for, you can go here and export this to Excel, and this is for your personal benefit. Maybe And right now, this is restricted not to the well sky because those are being exported to other locations. These are your custom ones that you have added in separate. Moving down, I want to take just a brief moment here to spend some time on reports. Because often when people ask, they want to be able to pull specific information based on various areas. And so all of these reports up here are pretty self-explanatory, being able to pull donor reports, application summary reports. And so this allows me to generate a report to say how many intakes have been happened at each site and giving me some intake totals. But what I want to show you down here at the bottom is your custom reports, whether it be applicants, angels, or other household members. And so when I come down here, I'm going to create a new report. And when I do, it gives me essentially every data point that is related to that applicant. And so I can go through and I can check all of the appropriate names. I can choose to export a report with a family number or not. Let's say the only information you want is the first name, last name, date of birth, distribution location, and family size. I'm just shooting from the hip here. And then you want to say, okay, I only want it to be from this intake site and only from this distribution site. Once I'm done, I'll generate my report and it'll export it as it would any other report. You also have the ability to save it as a new report, at which point you can have future reference, so you don't have to come in and keep selecting all of your different options. And you can do that from any of three options, from your applicants, from your angels, or other household members. A few things down here I want to be able to go through. Another one here, sorry, forgive me, I skipped one by mistake, I apologize. The next one is users. This is another one where we get lots of requests. Unique to the AngelTree platform is the ability for someone to access the system who is not an active TSAMM user. You may or may not realize, but in order to be a TSAMM user, you have to have what's called an active directory with the website. Basically, you have an email, you have a .usc or at usc.salvationarmy.org email address that gives you access into the system. But we all know we've got women's auxiliary members, volunteers, other special individuals that need access, but that would not have that Active Directory permission. So if I want to add an AngelTree user, right? This top one here, this explanation is here, but they need to be already set up in TSAMM. And so this is going to be maybe your development team or your HR team that maybe they already have access to TSAMM because of meeting manager or here in the very near future grants and contracts, so forgive me. So I'm going to go in through and I'm going to add my AngelTree user. When I open that up, it's simply going to walk me through steps. And so for right now, I'm going to add Major Rick Ray as a user. You're going to move forward. You'll confirm that that is indeed, and then you'll set their various permissions, things that they are able to do. Right here in the middle is the Can Manage AngelTree. This is the catch-all. If you give someone the Can Manage AngelTree permission, they are able to adjust campaign settings. They can do everything in the site. It is the top permission. But then you're allowed to give more granular approach. So maybe they don't have that, and you only want to have them deal with allocations. Maybe they don't do intake, they don't do distribution. They're only in your development department, and so they're only going to be dealing with assigning angels to donors and agencies. And you can go through and you can see each one of these. A user admin gives them permission to adjust user permissions. Intake applications, a supervisor, because this goes through admin permissions, but you'll go through and you'll select all the necessary permissions and I'll click save. You can always come back in, click on his name and go ahead and update those permissions as needed. I can also, through this red X over here, go ahead and delete that user should I so choose. Now I want to take a second to talk about a local user. Now a local user is going to be similar, except for I'm going to have to create, if they're going to access via their email address. So I'll put my first name, last name, date of birth, And I'm going to go through all of the same information that I did on the other setup. The difference being when they access this, if they want to access AngelTree, they cannot go to TSAMM.org the way a standard TSAMM user would. They have to go to this site here where it says tsam.org/login local. This is how they're going to access. If you go to tsam.org and you are a local user, you cannot log in. If you go to this location here and try to log in with your TSAMM ID, you will not be able to get in. Lastly, what we find occasionally is that you will have a TSAMM user, but they will have been put in as a local user. If you do that, they'll still, maybe they have TSAMM because of Meeting Manager. They can go in and access Meeting Manager on the TSAMM platform. However, the AngelTree module will not appear because they have been added as a local user. The rule of thumb here is that if they already utilize TSAMM, put them here in the top section. If they don't utilize TSAMM, put them here in the bottom section. One word of clarification, and I apologize if I misled you a few minutes ago. Just because you have usc.salvationarmy.org does not mean you are a TSAMM user. If you have a caseworker who does nothing on the TSAMM platform, has never been given access, even though she'll utilize her USC email address, she would still be put in as a local user. And so this is where you'd be able to manage your user base to be able to access the system. If you have someone who is temporarily going to be able to need to perform a function, but you don't want to go through the effort of giving them permanent access, because once you add someone as a local user, at any point they can log in and perform the function that you gave them permission to do. If you have someone who's coming in, maybe a women's auxiliary member or a volunteer, and they're just going to help with AngelTree intake for 20 minutes, you will launch a temporary session. When you do so, you'll be able to give them specific requirements. Maybe they can only do intake or checking out, editing, or appointments. You can give them the same type of specific roles that you give any user. The difference being is that if they log out or if they are inactive for 20 minutes, their session will be ended. And so they won't be able to continue on the system. They won't be able to access in. In fact, in doing so, you would log into the shared computer utilizing your TSAMM access, give a temporary session, and then it will log you out and restrict them to only perform the action that you allotted to them. Lastly, from an admin section here is the sending of communications. You have the ability to send out emails or text messages to your clients, to your applicants. You're going to first set the communication, and I'm just going to leave it intentionally broad. You'll select which intake site you want to go to, your distribution site, potentially even a distribution date. Maybe there was inclement weather on a day and you need to reschedule everyone that was supposed to come in on this Wednesday. You can go in and send it to everyone for that distribution date on that Wednesday to go out, as well as any statuses. Perhaps you want to notify everyone who is in a status of return to applicant that you have 5 days to resubmit your application or it will be removed. Like, you can ultimately communicate that how you see fit. Once I move forward, it's going to give me all my eligible applicants that fall into that category, right? And so this is a small list. Again, it's a test environment. I can also include any additional email recipients. This is where we encourage you to include someone on your staff. Sometimes we want to get confirmation that an email actually went out. I've seen actually some users in the Central Territory that will carbon copy themselves on their own emails just as a way to confirm that indeed the email they sent went out. So go ahead and add your email address down here. It's not shared, right? No one's going to be able to see that you received that email, but it does confirm that indeed this is the email that went out. This is what it was said. Now I'm going to click next, and then I will choose what I want to say from email. If you want to allow them to have a reply to, you can go ahead and put in a shared email or a specific one that they reply to the email. This is where it'll go to, the subject and the body of the email. Then you also have the ability to be able to send text messages. Now there's limitations on text messages, and down here for pricing, there is a cost associated with sending text messages. The first 100 text messages for a campaign are free. Then after that, they are processed at 1.99 cents per message. And then that is going to be billed all attempted messages at the end. And so this is not contingent upon deliverability to this recipient's end. So this is just a clarification here. And so it's going to give you information that's going to be sent to the application if they have utilized the phone number feature. And so I'll go through and I'll send all this information to send out mass communications. The last thing that I want to be able to show, and this is actually came, and what we're going to do is we're going to leave the last 15 or so minutes for open questions and be able to highlight any of the questions that are in the comment. Is there was a question that came as a part of the debrief about how you would be able to both save a filter settings as well as see how many angels were going to be distributed at a given time. And so what we want to do is we want to show you this. So if you want to be able to see the number of angels that are going to be distributed on a given day, you utilize your filter setting, and over here you have a distribution date. On distribution date, I'm going to set my distribution date as I only want to see how many people are on December 11th. So I'll set it from December 11th to December 11th. And when I click refresh, I'll be able to see that I've got 3 families that total out these angels here are the number of people that are going to be distributed on this day. And this is how I'll be able to find out how many angels or how many families are going to be coming in on a given day. If you utilize multiple warehouses, you just add additional filter options. You can put in additional distribution locations, as well as any intake locations. Maybe you want to restrict by status. You ultimately get to coordinate that. The last thing that we want to do is go over, before we open this up to questions, and what Eduardo will do here briefly is kind of unmute everybody so that you're able to just kind of chime in and ask some questions, is if you have certain filter settings and you want to be able to save those and be able to come back. So maybe you have the intake setting of the core and the core, but I also have some dates here. And I also have a status of admin approved, and I want to set all these things. And so the last thing I want to do is be able to have to go back and forth, back and forth. What I can do when I open up an application, just right click, open it in a new tab, at which point now I can go through and we'll go into more of that WellSky matching there on Thursday. And so we'll be able to go in and give the information, be able to go through and check the information. And now when I go back, I just exit out, and now my filter settings are still there, allowing me to remain. And so this is Angel Tree. And so we've got about 15, 20 minutes left. And so what I want to be able to open up some questions to the applicant. So Eduardo, if you can go ahead and unmute for the sake of allowing people to chime in. Eduardo is the producer, he's the keeper of the keys here. And what I'll do is I will highlight a few questions while he's doing so. One of the questions from Luke is what happens if they don't have email access? This is something that in order for them to access through the online application, they need to have email access. If someone doesn't have email access, they would want to utilize the family intake where it's coming through an individual, at which point then the email is not a required field for them to come in. So Eduardo, if you want to go ahead and unmute everybody.
We see a hand raised from Marsha Ware, so I thought we might just start with her.
Yeah,
she has her hand raised. Hopefully, Marsha, you still have that question ready to go. Possibly you answer that, but I'll go ahead and unmute you now.
Yeah, Marsha, do you have a question? I'm not sure if she still has a question. It sounds
that's fine. That's fine.
Is there any other questions? We want to leave some time here for people to be able to answer any questions. And so we'll go ahead and if there's any questions that we can answer, we're going to hang out here for a while. Again, this recording will be available after the fact for future way to review. Cynthia asks, is there a way to print the application as we have it in the online system for those who might be coming to the office for an in-person interview? Right now, there is not the ability to print your application based on the settings you have previously determined. What we would suggest using in this case is utilizing, since they're going to have to be interviewed and walked through and entered in manually, you would do that through an intake professional to be able to process that through. Eric, is there any additional information that you wanted to share for the sake of the administrators in addition to site?
I think, again, any questions that locations have need to be directed to DHQ, in particular, your social services, directors of social services, and your system admins for SIMS. They can work with me on questions they can't answer, and we can make sure that you get support on those things. Again, I also, if you have questions about the seasonal services that you're going to be setting up in SIMS, if you don't see something in TSAMM, you can certainly reach out to your divisional headquarters reps, and they can also talk to me, and we can make sure that we get any services that are not available yet in TSAMM set up properly. And just remember, if you put it in by yourself and it doesn't have the format that we need, those services won't come in.
So there's a couple of questions. Luke asked about being able to print angels. Yes, you can. So if you go onto the angel records section here, and so this is where I can select all. In order to be able to print an angel, they need to be in a status of admin approved. It goes through various levels of approval. They need to be in a state of admin approval in order to be adopted. But once you do that, you just scroll to the bottom of the page and click print angels. And so here it's going to print out all of the angels that are eligible to be printed. And I'll just click print, and it will print out in a form based on the template that you provided. And then you'll just go ahead and print this as you normally would to be able to generate that information. A few more questions here. The other training, so right now there are two trainings specific, one of which the admin one that we specifically had here. This is a question from Becky. The other question is, the other training is on Friday. This is for what we would say your standard users, how they would approve, how they would go through and process the application. And we'll go a bit more into the distribution on that site, as well as the adopt a family function. Genesis did ask for a little bit of a teaser from the adopt a family, so I'm happy to do so. Remember, you have to have your campaign configurations to allow adopt a family. And then what's going to happen is on the home screen here, or in the applicant record, if you've elected it, it's going to provide a button here called Adopt a Family. And so the way that Adopt a Family works is, regardless of where it's at in the application process, by marking someone as enabling Adopt a Family, it's going to revert their status to return the applicant. This is happening because the applicant is going to need to go back into their application, and now they're going to be prompted to enter needs and wishes for all household members. Every individual of their household will have the opportunity to enter in a need and a wish. And then when it comes back, it'll come back, and once they've been marked, you'll see here that in the heading here, it's going to go ahead and it's going to be marked as Adopt a Family. It's going to work our way through and go through. Eventually, as we go through, we'll have this all prepped for Friday. You'll be able to print a family picture here that says all the needs and wishes of the family members to be able to give to your donor. You'll be able to assign donors. So these are all coming components of the Adopt a Family. And so we're going to get more into that on Friday. And so that's just a little bit of a teaser there, Genesis, for you. And then there's just a couple of remaining questions here. as we go through. One of the questions is, some of the core are not able to see the same campaign that was set up. Should I start a brand new campaign this year? So every year you're going to want to start a new campaign. So in order to do so, you need to finalize your campaign from the previous year, and then you will be prompted when you start to be able to bring it forward. And so this is going to be utilizing that way. And so that's how they would come forward. If there is an ongoing question, Dee, go ahead and send us that note if a specific core is having a challenge getting that campaign up and ready, and we will by all means help. One thing that is unique to AngelTree and maybe different than Meeting Manager is that if you have a support question, those support questions come directly to Data Paradigm. And so if you have a database question, if you have an issue, if something's not working correctly, if you just need additional information on how something works, you'll go ahead and send that directly to us. Kathy asked a question and says, we do not do adoptions online. Are you going to have paper training? So I'm not entirely sure what you mean by paper training, but if you don't do online adoptions, you would utilize the family applicant intake. And if you remember, this campaign when we went into the applications, that you would configure your family applicant intake. And so that means when that goes in as an application, so the person doing the intake would come in and create a new applicant. And once they create a new applicant, then they're going to be walked through the process of creating this application. You're going to choose which intake site you're a part of. You're going to walk through what's the first name. You're going to be prompted step by step as you walk your way through this information. The one thing that's beneficial is that I am able to search previous years if I was a previous applicant. And so here you can see this is a previous application, but in other divisions that was utilized. This is actually in Panama City. And so I can choose to bring over this individual and bring them forward, or I can choose a new applicant. This is only available within the family applicant aspect. And so this is something that be able to move forward. And so I can go ahead and I just want to create a new applicant, at which point I can walk through and it prompted me to answer the questions based on the questions put in place in the campaign settings, at which point I can go through and process that application. If your desire is to create a paper application that the applicant would fill out and then submit, and then you would manually go in and enter the information, right now there is not a configuration to easily print the application as it sits online for paper entry. That would be something that we would just look to we would work with you to create. That's something that we can help to create for you, and we can talk with you about that. Or you can go ahead and create it based on your information, and then you would manually enter the information in the system as you see fit. Luke asked, how do you get to the AngelTree section once you are in TSAMM? When you log into TSAMM, you are first brought to this landing page, and it's going to present you with, it is going to be presented with modules here that you have access to. For right now, in the Central Territory, these are the only options that you potentially could have. Eventually, there'll be a grants and contracts module and some other things coming down the road, but this is going to be configured. This is how you would access it. You would come here, simply click on the module button, and it'll launch you into the AngelTree platform.
Yeah, I think Luke might actually be new to AngelTree this season, to TSAMM AngelTree,
okay.
And so therefore it would be added to your access once your division completes its kind of divisional agreement, and then we get all the locations in the division to have access to it.
I'd imagine that we are hearing from there's divisional representatives on this call, and so if you have a list of people who have already confirmed that they want to access the system, don't feel like you need to wait until you have every used application accounted for to go ahead and send us those names. Inevitably, there are going to be people. There are going to be people who will. desire to start their campaign configurations now. They really want to jump forward and be able to do that. And so we will, you can go ahead and send those over to Eduardo there at sales@tsam.org. And Eduardo, if you can go ahead and give them the support information that they would need throughout the course of the season.
I can do that. And actually, I can reach out, Jeff. I can reach out to the divisional services, social service directors, excuse me, with a list of all the locations in their division, and that might kind of help speed up that process as well.
Yeah, that's the right way to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Then if y'all just want to watch out for an email from me, I'll present a spreadsheet which will kind of have like let us know which locations you're interested, and that'll be the quickest way to move forward.
Eduardo, what's the support? Remind everybody of how they can contact you for if they have issues or need support for Angel Tree. You there, Eduardo? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'll add that email address is tsamsupport@dataparadigm.com. I'll add that to the chat for everyone to have that. I've also added in the chat a link to last year's Sorting and Distribution Management Toolkit webinar. That's a great way to kind of go in depth in that specific feature, that set of tools. I also added in there just a general link to our TSAMM library, which is our own YouTube channel, which we place all of our recordings on, so people can very easily access previous season's recordings, and it's a great way to kind of dive in deeper if you're looking to become an expert.
And last question, Roxanne, any questions that you have about Angel Tree, whether it be a custom tags or a custom application that you want us to design for you, you would reach out to Eduardo as the initial contact, and we will get back to you with any costs associated with those changes, and then it'll be reliant on you to just kind of confirm those. But you would contact in the same way that Eduardo put in the chat, so that you can get that ball moving if we can help you create those.
Again, DHQs, your DHQs would need to be aware of the things that you're looking to do.
So Eric, is the desire that if they wanted to contact us about a custom Angel tag, do you want that are you asking that flows through their divisional headquarters?
Yeah, it's just so that there's visibility and we understand what's going on.
Okay, no problem. And so just a slight correction, and just, sorry, Eric, maybe we can have a further conversation as it relates to support tickets or any of those types of components that happen throughout the course of the year. The last thing we want to do is bombard all the divisional social service directors with all of our correspondence, but maybe that's what they want. So maybe you and I can have a conversation around how you want that flow to happen from the field up to us.
Absolutely.
All right, we have just 5 minutes left. I'm wondering, I'm not sure we haven't gotten any new questions that have come in. Thank you guys very much. I know a few people have hopped off as they've been more familiar with this, but we're happy to hang out here for a few minutes until we can get this squared away and go ahead and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you guys for coming. We'll go ahead and please, we look forward to utilizing the system and the way that we can continue to partner together to serve your communities.